Today, we have the honor of welcoming a truly inspiring individual, Mr. Ramendra Kumar. Mr. Ramendra Kumar is not only an award-winning writer and storyteller, but also a motivational speaker who has touched countless lives with his words and experiences, and I am one among them who was positively impacted. Mr. Ramendra Kumar has authored more than 49 books, captivating readers through his engaging storytelling and humor. His ability to find joy and spread positivity even during the toughest time is truly commendable. In November 2021, Mr. Ramendra was diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer. Despite the immense challenges of multiple surgeries, radiation, and chemotherapy, he faced this battle with unwavering positivity and resilience. His journey through cancer has been nothing short of remarkable, but turning his personal struggles into a beacon of hopes for others. Today, we are fortunate to hear from Ramendra Garu himself as he shares the incredible journey and the lessons he has learned along the way. Hello, sir. Welcome to Desi Chai.
Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be on Desi Chai.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you share some memories from your childhood and early years?
So I had a very troubled and scarred childhood. I was put in a hostel when I was barely 5 because my mother also was a writer and she was quite self-obsessed with her writing. And when I came back home, early years I was subjected to a lot of bullying because I was one of those goody guys, sitting on the front bench, carrying the books for the teacher to the staff room. And I was good in studies, but I was quite bad in sports and pathetic in extracurricular activities. I remember a particular occasion when I had to take part in a debate competition. Among 8 participants, I stood last. So I was that timid. And also on the family front, my parents divorced when I was 15. And I'm a suicide survivor. And my father, he saved me. So my childhood memories are a bit, poignant and a bit tragic.
Who were the most influential people in your early life and why?
There was only one person, my father, my God. In fact, I've written a poem dedicated to him, which talks a little bit about my relationship with him. And I think most youngsters today also would be able to identify. So let me just read it out.
Please, sir.
This is my favorite poem. And this poem was on my father's bedside when he breathed his last, because this was also his favorite poem. It goes like this. My hero. When I was 5, my father was the greatest. He was my hero, better than the best. My best friend was he when I was 10. Someone to love and trust and have lots of fun. The kite that wouldn't fly, the boat that refused to sail. Every test my hero passed. Not once did he fail. Of love and togetherness we shared many a moment. His future he neglected, but never even once my present. He regarded quality time his most precious gift, even if it meant giving his career a bit of short shrift. When I was 20, he suddenly became a stranger. I was Mr. Know-All and the cool, lonely ranger. I thought he was a failure who had achieved nothing in life, neither wealth nor fame nor status. He was merely a father to his son, a husband to his wife. When he should have been climbing the ladder, he wasted his time on the family. Instead of being busy in meetings, he was tending my hurting knee. One day my friend saw my album of the time when I was nearly 10. In it were all the memories, the love, the joy, the fun. As he scanned the snaps, his face grew long and sad. I wish we could trade places and I could have such a loving dad. I have everything, my friend said, that money and position can buy. Yet in my album, there is no photo of my dad and I. While I was growing up, my dad too was busy growing, and in my stock of photos, there is not a single one worth showing. You have so many memories to treasure, while I have none. Though I may have a swanky car and a big house, I have lost a childhood of love and fun. As my friend left, I had tears in my eyes. How selfish and mean I had been. He made me realize. I went to my father, a tired and crumpled man. I told him, I'm sorry, but I love you more than anyone can. As he took me in his arms, and both of us began to cry. He was once again my hero, and I only 5.
I think you're the echo for all the sons.
I wish,
Yes.
I really wish.
Yeah. So, how did you meet your wife and what drew you to each other?
So I never believed in instant love or instant nirvana. But this notion was shattered when I joined Rourkela Steel Plant as a management trainee in the year 1986. I was asked to report to the room of the training chief. And when I entered, I saw a young woman sitting there. She looked at me and smiled and said, are you a management trainee? I said, yeah. She said, I'm also a management trainee. My name is Madhvi. At that instant, at 11:05 on 23rd October 1986, I felt completely, totally, absolutely in love. And I thought, if this beautiful angel would agree to be mine, I would be the happiest person in the whole wide world.
Wow.
It took me 7 seconds. It took her 7 months. She's always been rather slow. And we had a very tumultuous, a very tough time getting married because there was a lot of opposition from her parents. My dad was, as usual, cool. But finally, we could get married.
Good, so that's so.
And what drew us to each other? For me, it was the first, look itself. She was devastatingly pretty. She had an infectious smile. And I think she fell for my sense of humor because I was pretty odd looking, I used to look like a loafer, I think, a typical Hyderabadi loafer. But she fell for my, sense of humor. And one of my friends later said that you two make a great pair. You crack jokes and she cracks up easily.
Oh, that was so lovely to hear, romantic. So how would you best describe your married life?
Here again I've written a poem and I would like to recite it because I think the verse would say it best.
Lovely, sir.
So it's called Buddy's Best. A gossamer fabric of memories stitched together by time. A 3 decades plus journey which was often a pantomime. A scorching romance, a runaway marriage. It was truly a baptism by fire. We stumbled along tethered by the melody of love, the symphony of desire. Jobs, mama papahood, and a zillion chores, we seemed to be clutching at ephemeral moments. Our togetherness was soon falling prey to a clutter of bonsai events. Egos reared their nasty heads. Love started seeking space. Romance, which had been a bookmark, was now merely a fading preface. We were losing each other in the chaos called living. We pledged to renew our connect, which had always kept us going. We both dumbed our eyes in our recycle bin. Armed with we and us, we clawed back to a state of win-win. Of course, we had our fights and hurled often at each other some grievance, but we never ever unleashed the brutal violence of silence. The kids have flown the nest. We are back in the honeymoon phase. From the frenzied, frenetic life, we have set a leisurely pace to live with our faults, to love our many flaws, to look beyond the wrinkles, the heartache and the loss. When we move towards oblivion, we shall leave behind a treasure of love, laughter, and connect. In I hope, equal measure. When we move towards oblivion, we shall leave behind a treasure of love, laughter, and connect. In I hope, equal measure. Finally, in the Photoshop portraits on the walls when we rest, everyone who looks at us will only see two buddies best.
वारे वाह sir, क्या बात है. That was so nice. So moving to your writing, you began by writing satire and poems, is it right? So how did the shift to children's fiction happen?
That again is a very interesting story. So my daughter was 4 when my son Aniket happened. My beautiful, gorgeous wife and I both were working in the same steel plant. So her hands were full, managing the office, managing the
Correct.
home and all. So she inspired me. She motivated me. She told me what a useless fellow you are. You can't cook for nuts. You can't even boil an egg. You can't sing lullabies. You can't wash bums. You can't run a washing machine. You think you're a great writer. So why don't you tell stories to Ankita while I take care of the newborn Aniket? Now this was a challenge. Now Sangeeta, if your wife throws a challenge, especially if she's as beautiful and as gorgeous as my wife, I have to pick up the gauntlet.
Obviously.
So I said, okay, I'm going to tell her stories, but the egoist that I am, I said, why Mahabharata, Ramayana, Panchatantra? I'll tell my own stories. So I started cooking up little tales for her, and she simply lapped them up. Now I do not know whether it was the content or the style. I'm a terrible, terrible singer, and I think I'm a great dancer. So I used to jump around, sing, dance, and all, and she would enjoy. The story she enjoyed the most went to the word processor, from there to the editor and to the publisher, and that's how my journey as a children's writer started. After a couple of years, my son Aniket joined and doubled the size of my audience.
Oh, okay. That was interesting, sir. That's how it all started. So, what were the toughest moments during your treatment and how did you overcome that?
So, Sangeeta, I survived 3 septic shocks. The probability of surviving one septic shock is only 30%. 3 times I knocked on the door of death, shook hands with Lord Yama, and walked back to the kingdom of the living. My beautiful, gorgeous wife played Savitri to my Satyavan. I survived 4 major surgeries, 10 rounds of chemo, my hair is back, 5 rounds of radiation, and I was in the ICU for 40 days. And after my discharge, the process of recovery continued for quite some time, and it's still continuing to a certain extent. So what I did was, I decided that I have battled all my crises. I talked about my childhood, and I also suffer from a number of ailments like brittle diabetes, where the sugar levels move from one extreme to the other. There's something called silent thyroiditis, where again thyroid levels from the minimum to the max on the same day.
The hypo.
Hyper and hypo. And in between, I had a stint with a condition called hemangioma, where there was a polyp growing near the vocal cords, and I was almost losing my voice. A very critical surgery was performed. I was rushed from Rourkela to Apollo Hyderabad, and the surgery was performed. In between, I had twists with tuberculosis and COVID. Throughout all this, I battled every crisis with my mantra of managing every tumor with humor. So now, when the biggest crisis I was facing, I decided I had to go back to my mantra. So, almost 3 or 4 days after the diagnosis, I went crazy on social media. Poems, parodies of Amitabh Bachchan's dialogue, "Aaj to bahut khush hoge tum" from Diwar, "मैं और मेरी तन्हाई." You remember that dialogue from Silsila? "मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर बातें करते हैं." So I address cancer. "मैं और मेरा कैंसर अक्सर बातें करते हैं. तुम न होते तो ऐसा होता, तुम न होते तो वैसा होता. लेकिन अगर तुम न होते तो जिंदगी लंबी तो होती, लेकिन बड़ी नहीं होती." And then wacky, quirky kind of messages. And 2 days after my radiation, usually what happens after radiation is that you are like this, you can barely walk. But my daughter suggested, because she knows I'm crazy about dancing, that why don't we do a dance video? So we quickly conceptualized the idea, and I choreographed the song, the dance steps, and we danced to the 1980s chartbuster Jawan Janeman Haseen Dilruba, and my daughter shared it on Insta, and my radiation oncologist shared it across the entire spectrum of doctors, caregivers, surgeons, etc., etc., and it went viral. So, and I continued this throughout. I never ever pulled the shutter down.
That's amazing.
I never, you say that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I believe, don't wait for the light. Rush forward, grab the light, and make it your own.
Correct. So, how did your family and friends support during your?
The support of my family, I can't put it in words, because throughout this cancer journey, they put their lives on hold. It was a regular, almost a daily affair, rushing to the doctors, making sense of reports, scans, appointments, and listening to sometimes ill, well-meaning advice from relatives, which was quite stupid. And but throughout all this, they never ever pressed the panic button. They never ever made me realize, even for an instant, the kind of hell I was walking to and back on a day-to-day basis. I call them Ma. Amitabh Bachchan had his Ma in Diwar. They are my Ma. Madhavi, Ankita, and Aniket. And as far as friends are concerned, people say that online relationships are transient, ephemeral, temporary. But I found that my online and offline friends, the kind of support they gave me was tremendous. For instance, they lit lamps in temples across the country and abroad. Duas in masjid from Lahore to Lucknow to Guwahati, in churches, in gurudwaras. Then there were Buddhist chants were sent to me, incantations were sent to me, mantras were sent to me. And there was a director of Indian Institute of Mass Communication who wrote a column in 2 papers on my fight. And this young friend of my daughter, she's the first vegan to climb Mount Everest, first lady vegan. So when she submitted, she prayed, she thanked her parents, she thanked the Lord Almighty, and then she prayed for my health. Now tell me, Sangeeta, with this kind of support, which damn scourge like cancer could do anything to me?
Definitely not. Yeah. So, what are the coping mechanisms you would like to share with patients and their caregivers who are fighting cancer?
So, this is a question which is very, very close to my heart. In fact, I have written a book after my discharge from the hospital. I worked for 2 years on this book, doing a lot of research, primary data, secondary data, interviews, and my own experiences. Coping with cancer, hands-on strategies for managing the big C. Just let me quickly read out from the blurb.
Sure, sir.
A cancer diagnosis can seem like the death knell for most. Patients and their caregivers experience confusion, anxiety, uncertainty, distress, and morbid fear. What are the strategies they can use to cope with their feelings and emotions and navigate through the chaos caused by cancer? This book, Coping with Cancer, is a research-based book which provides practical insights to manage the big C. Each concept carries an introductory note supplemented by real-life case studies, almost all of which are based on Indian examples. Every strategy is easy to internalize and practice. The thread running through the narrative is my own experience of battling cancer in its most dreaded avatar and emerging victorious. According to my publisher, this is a must-have handbook which explores different mechanisms beyond medical paradigms to battle the emperor of all melodies. So, Sangeeta, I've given 11 coping mechanisms, and let me share that these coping mechanisms are not only for cancer.
For any.
They are for any kind of crisis,
Correct.
whether it's a divorce, death of a loved one, or a loss of a limb. These are generic coping mechanisms which can be used. So let me just share a couple with you, a few with you. The first and foremost I would like to share is that you should pursue a passion. Because it may be singing, dancing, music, gardening, writing. Because when you are in touch or in connect with your ikigai or passion, then these negative thoughts will not intrude into your space,
Correct.
and mess it up here.
Yes.
So for me, my passion has been storytelling, writing, dancing, sharing inspirational thoughts. Within 2 weeks of my discharge from the hospital, I set a routine where I would start writing something or the other. And then as I gathered some energy, I started participating in online workshops, panel discussions. Then later, I started moving out and, shaking a leg on stage, participating in children's literature festivals. So this book is a result of the last 2 years of hard work. Then I wrote another book during the same period. It's called My Grandpa, My Bestie. And this is, the background is cancer, where the grandpa is diagnosed with cancer, and this 11-year-old granddaughter, she creates a kind of a, how should I say, an ambience, so that she infuses positivity, hope, and optimism, getting her tatia or her tata and her family in that space. And together they fight this dreaded malady. I also finished this particular book. It's a book of horror stories. I had written earlier and it was released on Kindle. But during this time, I added a few more stories. So all 3 books have done very well on Amazon. They are bestsellers and can be, purchased there. So passion is one very, very strong coping mechanism. The second one, I would say, is that have faith. I'm not saying you believe in one particular God. I don't believe in one particular God, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or whatever. I believe in one entity, one power, who is taking care of all of us. Let me give you an example how faith works. On 16th April 2022, I suffered my first septic shock. First major surgery, then the reconnecting surgery. Major surgery went off very seamlessly. Reconnecting surgery went completely haywire. And I suffered that septic shock. My family was called at very late in the night, and they were led to the ICU, and they were told that possibly he's not going to survive. So when 3 of them walked in, I was on a ventilator. My hands and feet had started turning blue. They were all bloated. I was completely unconscious. My BP had plummeted to 55, and despite the strongest medicines known to doctors anywhere, it was not moving up. The main doctor had given up. He had gone to the canteen. There was only a male nurse. God knows what got into my daughter, Ankita. She placed her palm on my forehead and started talking. She said, Papa, you can't do this. How can you just go away? You have always told us that it is the mind over the matter. It's the mind over the body.
Correct.
Now you have to prove it. You have survived the toughest of odds. You have fought every crisis with your guts and gumption. And you have inspired us. You have so many friends. You have so many followers. You have so many fans. We are all rooting for you. They all love you. And I love you the most. The scene was exactly from a 1980s or 90s masala Hindi or Tamil or Telugu movie. The hero, or in this case the comedian, is lying on the bed. The relatives are all around him and are praying for the miracle to happen. But in real life, miracles happen. But this was real life. But would you believe it, Sangeeta? As she started talking, my son Aniket told her, have you lost it? He can't even hear you. Ankita said, I don't care. And she continued talking. For 30-40 minutes, she talked to me. And then they actually noticed the BP going up. And when my wife and my son noticed that, they also started cheering me up. And bit by bit, the BP climbed. And when it reached 117, the doctor came in and he said, "Now you please move out. We'll take him for surgery." When I discussed this much later, when I was told by my family, quite a few of the allopathy doctors, they would not admit. So I talked to the former head of psychiatry, Nimhans, and he told me many doctors will not admit, but there was some energy, some connect, which was created between you and your daughter that helped you walk back from the door of death to the land of the living. Science cannot explain it.
Correct.
But faith can.
I've
So
experienced.
faith is a huge power. So that is one coping mechanism where you have to move from fear to faith. And finally, one of my favorite coping mechanisms is, please don't take life seriously. If you have to take anything seriously, take humor seriously.
Correct.
Let me give you an example. As I was undergoing this treatment, one of my aged relatives, he's a very serious kind of person, you know. So had he believes in gravity, I believe in levity.
Okay.
Had he been alive at the time of Newton, he would have discovered gravity without the help of the apple. He laughs once a month, the day he gets his salary. So he rang up Madhvi and he said, "Ramin has gone berserk on social media. What does he think? He's making a mockery of a serious ailment like cancer. He's flirting with death. If he continues like this, he will die in bits and pieces." I told Madhvi, "Tell him, Ramin will not allow any colon cancer to put a full stop, a comma, or even a semicolon to his creativity and humor."
Great.
Also add that was the year 2022. That was the year of the comedian. Zelensky in Ukraine, Bhagwan Maan in Punjab, and hopefully Ramendra Kumar in Namma Uru, Bangalore. Finally tell him that Ramin believes in two great philosophers. Gabbar Singh in Sholay in the year 1975, who declared, "Jo dar gaya, samjho mar gaya." And 2022, Pushpa, who said, "Main jhukega nahi."
So that was so inspiring, sir. Really inspiring. The same what you said, I have experienced in my own life when my son was having all rat fever, dengue, malaria, everything together. Even the doctor said you have to wait for some hours. We can't say anything. The same, some kind of, I was just keeping my hands on his forehead and praying. He came back to us. He is the one who is shooting in front of you.
I know, miracles do
Yeah,
happen.
miracles do happen. Yeah, we have to
You have to believe in that.
believe in that. Exactly.
Finally, guys, I would just like to share that often the worst of times bring out the best in us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.